Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Wendy Hill with us. She's a nutritional therapist and a female hormone expert. Her business is called HillStart Nutrition, Health, and Wellness. We're going to talk about that today. This podcast is presented by podpair.com. If you want to start your own podcast or scale your own podcast, go to podpair.com. Wendy, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks, Charles. So I am a nutritional therapist. It's my second career. And it was what I decided to do when I finished my previous career and I saw my business. I was like, what am I interested in? What can I do while I decide what I really want to do with the rest of my life? So I took a course in nutrition. It sparked an interest, and then I trained with the College of Naturopathic Medicine. Did a biomed foundation, which was very scary, learning all about the body. And I hadn't done biology since I was about 13. So that was a bit of a shock. But really just love it. And since then, I've trained to be a genetic nutritionist, and then earlier last year, a yoga teacher. So very much sort of, the science as well as the holistic aspect. And I just love bringing it all together. We are a very interconnected being, and I think modern medicine separates us into different body parts, and actually it's all connected. What you're thinking affects your digestion, affects your energy levels, affects everything, even the people that you surround yourself with. So yeah, it's a new career that I absolutely love.
Right. And for almost your full life before that, 26 years, you were director at General Building Plastics. That was the family business. What prompted you to end that one and start your new career?
So I done that since I was 18. I didn't know anything. I literally left school, went straight there. And it was great. It was me and my brother who ended up running it for sort of about, I don't know, about the last 15 years. And it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Very different to what I'm doing now. We had like a builder's merchant, basically a specialist builder's merchant. And we built it up to 6 branches, so quite a sort of a big regional outfit. But we changed what we wanted from the business, and I now know, looking back, that I was going through perimenopause as well, but I didn't even know what that meant at the time. And I think that had kind of driven some of it, but I just got to the point where I was like, really, is this it? Is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And I just lost my joy in it. Luckily, I was able to exit, and my brother bought me out, and try something different. But I didn't really know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I'd kind of done that. I ticked all the boxes, and it felt a bit like I was on a little bit of a hamster wheel. It was like I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. And yes, it might be a bigger company. We might have more branches. We might have more staff, but it's just the same thing on repeat. And it's like I just want to do something different.
Right. And what were the challenges of menopause? Is like, what does a woman go through at this period of her life, and what can she do to diminish the symptoms of it?
Great question. So for me, that I now know, looking back, that one of the biggest sort of impacts on me was lack of sleep. So I just didn't really. I went from sleeping so easily, going to bed, sleeping 8 hours, 9 hours, no problem. But literally, if I hadn't fallen asleep within about 30 seconds of being in bed, I'm like, what's wrong? What's happening? And then I kind of hit 40. And although I got to sleep okay, I'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then part of the kind of the hormonal imbalances then meant that what I lay there doing was analysing every single thing that had happened the day before and thinking, could I have done that differently? Could I have said something differently? What's going to happen the next day? Thinking through every sort of single different kind of thing that might happen, all the different possibilities. And I would be awake for 3 or 4 hours. And so it's no wonder that I wasn't kind of in the best frame of mind the next day, getting 4 hours sleep. And I think that sort of, brain fog is something that lots of women talk about in the menopause or perimenopause period. But I do wonder if it's often driven from this poor quality sleep that is a real driver of menopause. And I did the typical thing that I think lots of people do is I'd get home after a stressful day, and I'd had a really horrible day, and I was really tired, and I hadn't had any sleep the night before. So I'd open a bottle of wine, and I'd have a couple of glasses of wine to de-stress. And that just made things worse. And it wasn't until much later when I kind of cleaned up my diet, managed my stress much better, and really prioritized sleep. Hit the quit the alcohol, and I quit it for about a month and couldn't relieve how much better I slept. Now, I'm not saying I don't drink now, but I now know that every single night it just wasn't doing me any good. But I do think the kind of the anxiety and the poor quality sleep is a very early sign of perimenopause that most women ignore. If you think about women in their sort of 40s, they're often, at the peak of their career. They might have young children. They might be caring for elderly relatives as well. And you don't have time. I don't have time to be anxious or worried. And if they do go to the doctors, they're often given anxiety medication rather than asking the question, oh, hold on a minute, is it perimenopause? And maybe, do we need to look at lifestyle and, and nutrition and maybe some key supplements and kind of clean that up a bit first rather than immediately going down the anxiety route?
And how do you actually, yeah, fix that through diet, for example, or sports and lifestyle? Because yeah, taking a couple of glass of wine definitely doesn't seem like a scalable solution.
No, it's quite an enjoyable, scalable solution, but yeah, it doesn't really solve it. So I would say, so the three questions you asked there, I would say, as far as exercise goes, it's hard because you get to that, lots of women get to that sort of 40th stage and they might put on a little bit of weight as well. It's quite associated with it, but that can be down to issues with cortisol, and we then end up working out harder and harder and harder. And if you've got a super stressful job and a super stressful life, and then you start doing a really stressful form of exercise, what do you find? You just super stressed all the time, all cortisol driven, which again is going to impact your sleep, isn't it? So really thinking about maybe changing up your exercise routine, adding things like yoga in and stuff. And I now can say, from training as a yoga teacher, I'm actually leaner and stronger from doing yoga than I was from doing running and HIIT classes and weight classes. It's changed my body shape for the positive, but I couldn't do it at the time, or I wasn't prepared to let myself do it because I was like, I can't just lie, do a bit of stretching and lie on a mat for an hour. That's never going to work, but actually it does. Cleaning up the diet, really thinking about sugar, insulin dysregulation. Insulin's a hormone. So insulin dysregulation in the perimenopause period is quite a common problem. So really cleaning up the diet, getting rid of those sugary foods, prioritizing protein, making sure you're getting some good protein at every single meal. Carbs aren't the enemy, but it needs to be good quality carbs. And then looking at stress management. So how can you reduce stress? We can't all give up jobs. We're not all in the position that I was in, that you can have another career, but we can look at, am I doing too much? Am I overcommitting? Is there a way of me doing a little bit better? Am I working too late in the night? Am I working weekends? How does that need to change so that you can, if it's a career you love, so that you can carry on with that career, rather than what I see is lots of women leaving their careers at 45, 50 because they're just burnt out. Whereas if they just adjust a little bit, go speak to their bosses, can they do a slightly shorter week? Can they do a few hours less a week to just give them that bit of breathing space when they need it?
Right. And the podcast that you've started, like you talked to various experts on this subject. You've talked to various women that had menopause. What challenges did they face normally in trying to implement all these solutions?
I think a lot of it is down to support. So whether or not they could actually get support from family members is assuming that they're not going to get support. So rather than going out there and being vulnerable and saying, I'm not doing great, can you help me? This is what I need. So it's a case of, I think particularly at this, women who are going through menopause at the moment, we're kind of the generation who were told we could have it all and we should have it all. So we could have that amazing life and the family and the career. We want the beautiful home and be the amazing hostess, but we still need to do a 60-hour working week. So it's just to admit that you need a bit of help prioritizing themselves. Many women, I don't want to be saying it's all women are different to men, but I do find I have male clients as well, and I do find that women tend to put themselves at the bottom of the list. Everybody else comes first, and they're the last one on the list. So just prioritizing their health and well-being just for that short time when they need it. Post menopause, things do get easier. So it's a kind of a 5-6 year period maybe where they just need to really prioritize themselves. And I think that's what most women struggle with is, they feel like, yes, I know I need it, but I can't do it because everyone else needs something. And you're like, well, maybe now is the time where you say, actually, I'm the one that needs something. I'm the one that needs the support.
For hormonal balance at a younger age when a woman wants to get pregnant, what do you recommend lifestyle and diet wise?
Oh, great. Love that question. Brilliant question. So it's probably very similar. I always say this when people ask me the question. My answer to everything is green leafy vegetables and nuts and seeds. Don't matter what you ask me. So we'll start with green leafy vegetables and nuts and seeds. But I think it is very, very similar to menopausal women. It's about balancing those hormones. So, certainly for someone who was trying to conceive, I'd be talking about making sure that they are really getting those essential ingredients in the diet. So, in the UK, we talk about 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. Well, forget that. That's for amateurs. You should be looking at 10 portions of fruit and vegetables today a day. Ideally, 2 portions of fruit and the rest of veg in all the colours of the rainbow every single day. Making sure you get plenty of healthy fats. We make our sex hormones out of cholesterol, good cholesterol. So you want to be getting things like oily fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines. Making sure you're getting plenty of nuts and seeds, which are high in omega-3, so that's those essential fats. Things like olive oil. You're prioritizing those really kind of quality healthy fats, omega-3s, to help us produce those hormones. And then again, what's your lifestyle like? Your body, if you are super stressed and really unhappy, working out really hard, you aren't the best environment for a baby, and your body knows that. Mother Nature knows. And so it's going to wait until you're calm, you're happy, you're well nourished before it's going to say, right, well, she's ready now. We can, you have the ability to grow a human within you. And once you get pregnant, the baby takes priority. So any nutrients, the baby that will feed the baby first. So making sure you feed yourself well, which is why you need to be well nourished at the start, at the beginning of that journey. And it can really help. I've helped quite a few clients with fertility issues, and often just calming down and letting go a little bit. I'm sure, I don't know if you know, but I know a few friends who've kind of gone through rounds of IVF, and then actually when they've said forget it, we're not doing it anymore, suddenly get pregnant because they've calmed down, they've kind of had that out breath, and suddenly the body's gone, oh, okay, you're calm now, you're ready.
Right. And how does one calm themselves down, generally speaking? Meditation, letting go, mindset hacks, lifestyle hacks. Like what would you recommend for one to diminish the cortisol in themselves?
Yeah. So I think in meditation is always the one that people kind of highlight as go do meditation. Certainly, if you told me 12 years ago, do meditation, it had made me more stressed than actually I was before. So I think it's finding the thing that works for you, finding the things that bring you joy in life, but also things that bring you calm. So if it's reading, if it's cooking, if it's going for a walk, if it's meditation, you don't have to be sitting still to be able to be in a calmer state to activate that parasympathetic nervous system. A top tip that I say to people is if you feel that you're getting a little bit stressed, just take 3 deep breaths. It's all you need to do is calm the body, is take 3 deep breaths. So just thinking about that, trying not to be reliant on your phones and social media all the time. I always say to people, try and put your phone to bed an hour before you do, and try not to have it in the same the same room as you do. Try for it not to be the first thing and the last thing that you do at night, because even if you're only reading a message, maybe, in the family group chat that says, oh, when you come and visit me tomorrow, can you get a bottle of milk, or whatever it might be, your body doesn't, you've still kind of activated your brain. You've activated that, oh, I need to remember, I need to do that. Maybe you're a bit annoyed because you're like, why is it always me that has to do it? And suddenly, without realizing, you're driving those cortisol levels. And then thinking about your cortisol regulation as well. So it's not just about reducing stress and reducing your cortisol, it's about stress management. Stress is actually good for us. Cortisol is what gets you out of bed in the morning. So you want cortisol at the right time. So thinking about things like daylight. So getting up in the morning, don't snooze your alarm clock. That's the first thing. Don't snooze your alarm. Set the alarm for when you're going to get out of bed, and get out of bed and get some natural daylight as early in the day as you possibly can. If you can go for a walk, great, because you're getting a bit of exercise as well. But if not, can you just go and sit by a big window? Can you sit in the garden? Maybe have your first drink of the day out in the garden. But daylight activates cortisol, and what we want is cortisol in the morning. Maybe we have a bit of cortisol in the day if it's a bit of stress and stuff, we need to run for the bus or we need to make a decision. It's a good thing, but we need to bring it back down again. And then nighttime, we want it at its lowest level so that we can sleep really well. And I know I'm harping on about sleep, but sleep is so important for everything. We repair everything. We lay down our memory at night time. Our learning happens when we're asleep. So if we're not sleeping, we're just not consolidating the day, and it can really lead to that dysregulation. So making sure you get some really good quality sleep, really prioritizing your sleep, so that you are managing those levels and getting. I mean, sleep deprivation is a form of torture. Are half of us torturing ourselves half the time? We are really, aren't we?
This is a challenge with cooking nowadays. Seems to me like I want to hack everything. I just want to order the food to my door. I like cooking. And I guess that's rare in our world nowadays. But what challenge do you see in people taking the time to select the right foods and cook them into something delicious into their plates?
Yeah, I know, it's true, isn't it? When you can get everything so easily delivered, why would you cook? But when you are, when you walk past a shop that is making something that you like to eat. So for me, it's freshly baked bread, or it might be like garlic in an Italian or something. Your mouth starts to water. This is your body preparing for the digestive process. So when you're cooking, or if you're in an environment where someone's cooking, this is happening in your digestive system as well. You're producing those enzymes ready to break down food. So if you're just having food delivered and you're opening it up and it's sitting there, you haven't really prepared for that meal. So even if you're not cooking, even if you're just in the room with someone who's cooking, you are actually prepping. Our bodies are just meant to smell it. You're preparing it. You're getting ready. So that's one of the big advantages. I think about this like lunchtime. If you're super stressed and you're like trying to eat and you're working at the same time, do you feel bloated after? And it is because you haven't taken that little bit of time to chew your food, to process your food, to kind of connect with your food. As far as time for cooking, I get it. I'm the same. I love to cook, but I don't want to be in the kitchen for an hour and a half when it only takes perhaps 15 minutes to eat the meal. That doesn't seem like a good balance, does it? So I do quite a lot of cooking I've got a membership, and I do a lot of cooking in there. I've got lots and lots of recipes in there. And it's always my aim to be able to maximum get a really nice meal on the table with 30 minutes worth of effort. So the 30 minutes worth of effort might be 5 minutes to shove something in the oven, and it might cook for 45 minutes, and then I maybe have to do another 5 or 10 minutes, maybe adding some herbs and some spices and stuff. But for me, it should be easy, it should be tasty, and it should be convenient, because if it isn't, you're not going to do it, are you? You're going to order that takeaway, you're going to get the food delivered. So it's about making the balance between the amount of effort the quality of taste that you're going to get and the satisfaction that you feel from cooking, balancing the time. So I love the fact that you like to cook, Charles. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Good question. Pasta, I guess. Or yeah, I don't know. Nowadays, it's like if I'm lacking imagination, I like to use ChatGPT actually to suggest me some recipes with what I have in the fridge, or yeah, just to suggest me recipes. What do you think about that?
I think that's brilliant. I wouldn't have thought about using ChatGPT for that. I don't know if you have that where you are, but in the UK we have a lot of these kind of like recipe delivery companies where you can kind of you cook it yourself, but they've got all the ingredients in there. And I think they're brilliant. I'm like, why wouldn't you? And even I order them sometimes for myself. And then I tend to keep the recipe and I might tweak it and adjust it so it's a bit more Wendy friendly, as I call it. But I think it's a brilliant idea. Get the inspiration where you can. I also love really convenient foods as well. So I've always got, packs of ready cooked pulses, jars of pasta, jars of sauces. So all kind of things that make life easier. Frozen vegetables. You can even get frozen pre-chopped onions. There is no excuse to not cook if it's already done for you, is there?
Now, I've been sick for the past 2 weeks, getting back on track, but what are some tips that you have for the immune system and boosting it?
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad to get back on track. I've had a horrible cold as well, so I've been feeling pretty ropey. Um, Lovely vitamin C, super easy, super cheap, highly anti-inflammatory, really brings down that inflammatory cascade. Always, the first thing I say to people is just go heavy on the vitamin C the minute you think you might be getting ill, particularly if it's a cold. Zinc is also quite nice as well if you've got a cold. Food wise, I'm a huge fan of bone broth. Really high in collagen, really nourishing, particularly if you're not feeling great. Even if you just warm up with some bone broth, it helps. And if you can, just chuck in some vegetables. You've got a really sort of hearty soup there as well. Some nice study papers around chicken soup, showing that it kind of boosts the immune system, reduces the length of any sort of viruses, things like colds and things like that from chicken soup. And it's down to that kind of the bone broth, that kind of that stock element of it. And vitamin D, really important, particularly where we are, because for literally 6 months of the year in the UK, we can't get enough vitamin D from daylight, even if we could go out, sort of and expose our skin to it, we don't get enough. So really high correlation between low levels of vitamin D and pretty much every kind of illness. So vitamin D is an almost non-negotiable, really.
What's your stack for the brain for increasing energy and concentration?
I'm a big fan of CoQ10, so Ubiquinol, particularly as you start to get a little bit older. So that's a key one for me. But I also think the nourishing as well. So again, making sure you get enough protein. I know there's been lots of talk on other podcasts. I've heard it about some sort of biohackers and stuff saying that everybody gets enough protein, and I'm like, I don't see that in my job. I most clients I speak to still don't get enough protein, and it's the essential building blocks of everything. And even when they think they're eating quite a protein rich diet without, they'll say low carb. And by carb, I'm saying in inverted commas, I mean like processed foods. So, pastries, sugary foods, that kind of thing. And when I actually look at a food diary, I still think most people are eating far too many processed foods and not enough protein and good fats. Brain needs lots of really good fats as well. So really just thinking, you know, actually being honest with yourself and saying how much processed and sugary foods am I having and how much real food am I having. And if the predominance of your diet is real food, with a real emphasis to making sure you have protein at every meal, that you have really good quality fats at every meal, and then some colourful veggies, there isn't a lot of room left for that junk. And it's not great. It's not great for our energy levels. It's not great for our brain health. So really thinking about those real real foods, like eating like our great grandparents would have done, is much out seasonally, so much more variety, and food that was just better for you.
Thank you for the value added today, Wendy. Where can people find out more about you?
Brilliant. So I'm on all the socials. I'm Fab Female Nutrition is my podcast and my Instagram handle. And then I'm on Facebook as the company name HillStart Nutrition. So any of those, I quite like hanging out on Instagram. It's probably my favorite social media platform. But if they're listening to this podcast, hopefully they'll connect with me on my podcast as well.